10:55 a.m. this Friday morning, August 30th, 2024. This is our sky conditions currently with the greater light. And let's see if we can get this to work, dim down that lighting a little bit. But the glare is so strong you can't even see the ball. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and talk about these two so-called balls of light in our sky. The sun, the moon. I focus on the sun quite often. Once in a while on Miss Luna, the moon. Wherever she may be at this point in time, who knows. And I would like to go into the subject matter of the moon. I want to stay away from these new age theories such as simulation, matrix, flat earth. Let's go with what is referred to as natural. So in regards of this planet, or so we've been told that it's a planet, we have the creation of this world, the sun, the moon, stars, and other planets. Or at least supposedly that's what is all out there. Now, according to the most ancient stories, written stories, it describes how these visitors from another place came here. It describes their journey here and what they witnessed, which was the creation of what we know today as the earth, the sun, the moon. Pertaining to the surface of the moon, we see that it is kind of a whitish color, right? At least when it is supposedly reflecting the sunlight, and which it is referred to as moon glow. But now science is trying to state that the dust on the moon's surface has a glow all of its own. A natural glow, if you will, like a phosphorescent, there we go, composite. But science states that the craters were created through asteroid strikes. Do we have any footage out there of these objects hitting the moon? Personally, just me, myself, and I, the three of us, have never observed anything striking the moon, the surface of the moon, other than a type of a ballistic missile a few years back, which nobody seems to really remember us trying to, cause a disturbance on the surface of the moon in order to determine if there's water within that dust. Come on, people. Dust is dry, is it not? So that right there, that was deception. There's a lot of theories over what really occurred and what happened. But going back to those ancient stories, it describes this mass collision of planets, which caused the asteroid belt, which caused the formation of the new Earth, as well as the moon. Once again, science, astrophysics and all that, they want to state that all the craters were created by these asteroid strikes. Well, has anybody ever visited any hot springs? Those volcanic hot springs, such as like what we find out in Wyoming with Old Faithful and geysers like that, and as well as Colorado, they've got hot springs in the mountains and other places as well. Well, A lot of people are familiar with those hot springs, but not very many people are of the understanding that there are other types of hot springs, but they are mud pools, bubbling mud. Now, let me explain this. So we have this heat coming from down under the surface. It comes bubbling up through these muddy pools, and which sometimes they are described as clay pools, bubbling clay pools. Now, something to understand is even though the heat of the above surface temperatures can be a variable in the equation, this is what happens. Because there's that heat, because there's air below the surface of the earth, because after all they state that, you know, within the center of the earth there is like a molten ball of iron or whatever, okay, and that's where all of our volcanic situations occur from, and you know, the volcanoes and all that. So, and which that is also the case with these very hot geysers out west. But in these clay pools, you have the heat and air that comes up in the form of bubbles. Once they hit the surface, those bubbles will pop, but there is a cool down period, okay? And this is what occurred with the moon. It was a molten ball of lava, basically. But as it cooled in the temperatures of space, the outside started to harden. The inside, being molten rock, was still boiling away, causing air bubbles and heat to come up to the surface and create those bubbles. But because of the cold temperatures of space, those bubbles would pop, but they would already be turned or hardened because of the coolness, and would scatter fragments of these bubbles, these now hardened bubbles. They would pop, creating the craters as well as the material that juts up around the edges of the craters. Not many craters on the moon show anything inside of them. Only a very few. So you have to ask yourself, okay, so how did these craters be created? There is no evidence of a meteorite, whatever, in the center or within those craters. Bubbles that cooled, hardened, popped. The exterior of the bubbles became shards, just like glass. And it's that glass material that is reflective today from the shards of those bubbles that popped, causing the craters. Now that is my natural explanation of the moon, if it is indeed a rock up there, trapped in orbit with the Earth. That's my explanation of craters on the moon.